firsthand for those that are going to make the trip. Beautiful campus. It takes a lot of effort in high school to get to the Naval Academy, as some of you know and will find out, right? So, great start to an awesome career. I won't steal his thunder on all of the accolades there, but having a retired flag officer in the area, it's always a great resource, great friend of the program. So let's give a round of applause for Admiral Donaldson.
So one of my jobs was an instructor for 3 years. I also made all the students clap before the lesson. So that's a joke. So let's hit the lights, because I designed this brief to be given in the dark, right? You can get 30 minutes of sleep or a nap, or you can stay awake and learn something. Either way, this next 30 minutes you'll benefit from. So, how many of you are thinking about Navy or Marine Corps? Okay, forget Marine Corps. How many Navy? All right, thank you. This brief is for all the services. I can speak best to the Navy, and you'll see why in a second. But I try to give you something to think about, and if you walk away with 1 or 2 nuggets that serve you well, then I've been a smashing success. It was here, was it 3 Saturdays ago or 2?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, another board member, I'm representing the Navy League right now, participated in the brain brawl, actually asked the preliminary questions. So I have some skin in the game for your success, and congratulations both to the academic side and the drama side. Next slide, please. So here's the brief. As I mentioned, I was an instructor in the Navy. Philosophy is tell the students what you're going to talk about, then talk about it, and then tell them what you just talked about, and hopefully they'll remember. So this brief is just 15 slides, and the takeaways up front are, and I will speak to my career and actually preparation and background to that. So if you're lucky enough to find a job that you get paid for and you enjoy it, it's not called work. Not many people, are lucky enough to find that. It took me 10 years to find it, and I'll walk you through that. But that's takeaway number 1. I have a plan A, B. In my case, it took a plan C to find where I would excel in the Navy. And you don't have to be the smartest person on the block. Out hustling always helps. And in some cases, I outlasted my competition. And it took 25 years, but I did. And then the third takeaway is don't be average. My favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln is, God must have loved the common man because he made so many. Right? So don't be average. You can be average if you want, but the way in my opinion, the way you succeed is you're above average, and I've got some numbers to show you that. Next slide. All right, so that story anyone can tell is their own. And let's get started. So that, my plan B, I ended up as an engineer on a destroyer, great ship, tough job. But there I am in my stateroom. I was in the Navy, they call engineers snipes. And because they're below decks, nobody gets to see them because they're in the engine rooms and the boiler rooms. You get to grow your hair a little longer. Back then, we could have beards in the Navy. Obviously, I have an attitude, and yes, the Navy runs on coffee. Next slide, please. So after 33 years in the Navy, that's what I look like. This is a pretty docile crowd here.
Well, it's early.
It is early. Right? Now, that is actually me. I ended up being a mascot at a senior school, but it's actually served me really well. Next slide, please. So here you go. The passion aspect. I come from a long Army line. My father, grandfather, great-grandfather all went to West Point. We go back 7 generations. that great-great-great-great-great-grandfather and son fought in the Revolutionary War. My great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War on the side of the South and relocated to Greenville after the Civil War. And Donaldson Airfield is named after my great-uncle, America's 5th ace in World War I. And he became an ace because he flew 2 years for the British before the U.S. got into World War I. So I have a long, and back then it was the Army Air Corps. So lo and behold, I turned down an appointment to West Point and I went to the Naval Academy. My family still doesn't understand that, but that's okay. So my plan A was go to the Naval Academy. I was an oceanography major because I love the ocean. And I met my wife in high school. I was a senior, she was a sophomore. Her father was a rising submariner, so I was influenced. I was going to be a submariner. Didn't pay much attention to anything else in the Naval Academy because I was going to be a submariner. He interviewed with a guy named Admiral Rickover, went out to nuclear power school, back then out in California, flunked out 8 days before graduation. We were only allowed to drop 2 courses, and the electrical engineering final got me. To this day, I'm terrified of electricity. But the Navy said, hey, Donaldson, you wanted to be a nuke, you wanted to be a nuclear engineer, but you weren't smart enough. So we're just going to send you to engineering school, and you'll be a regular engineer on a steamship, 1,200-pound steamship. So that's what they did. I went, and that was plan B. I went to my first ship, and I was an engineer for 3 years. After 3 years, I turned to my wife and said, I love the Navy. I hate engineering. And I was lucky enough to be able to have a second shot, or actually third shot. The Navy let me change from engineering to oceanographer in the Navy, and went to postgraduate school, and off we go. So it took me a while to find my, go ahead, next slide. It took me a while. And then I did 23 years as an oceanographer, and you'll see a couple things that I did. Down here it said never had the same type of job back to back, right here. So 33 years, six years sea duty with 2 ships and some other, flying with some helicopters. And clearly the majority of my time was ashore doing great jobs, but not at sea. So when I went from engineering to oceanography, it's not a sea-intensive job field. And back then, in the 90s, for oceanographers, you would go to sea on an aircraft carrier, and that was it. If you had a successful tour there, you'd make commander, but you wouldn't. There were no sea duty jobs for commander and captain. So. So I was lucky. When the Navy sent me to postgraduate school to get 2 degrees, physical oceanography and meteorology, you have to do a master's thesis, and I picked, next slide please, okay, so forget this. I picked bioluminescence, you know, the fireflies. This is what it looks like in the ocean. A lot of dolphins going through.
Bow-winding dolphins are revealed as dazzling outlines. Whenever these lights appear, the way life in the ocean hunts and hides is transformed. Perhaps dolphins are guided to their prey by the light of the diaphragms.
Thank you. So thank you. The dolphins aren't glowing, right? There's no such thing as a bioluminescent dolphin. But it's the dolphins going through the water, and the plankton that are luminescent are agitated. And this is from my thesis, not the plankton guy. But I did research on these 2 types of plankton, little one-cell plants and or animals in the ocean. And I designed an experiment to measure the pressure increase and decrease over 1 second to try to measure and find statistically what pressure change would cause the bugs to glow. So next thing. So this is post-Navy. This was 2 years ago. It was a presentation. Why would you want to know more about bioluminescence in the ocean? Well, big things that shoot torpedoes, when they move, just like the dolphins, if the conditions are right, they create a signature. Had a hard time convincing the Navy that was viable. So 2 years ago, this is from a presentation. So this is 2 images. It's the negative of 1 image of a video. I want you, so this is the original video. This is a low light commercial camera on a Cessna, on a plane. Could be a UAV, I've never been able to get them to do that. Flying at 2,000 feet off of Santa Barbara, California. And this is just 1 frame of the video. So remember this, look at this guy right here. And then this model area, he said, hey, let's flip the image so you can see it better. So here is this signature, and you can kind of see the clutter go away, although this is awful color. Next slide, please. And so lo and behold, here's a whale. In the video, the whale is slowly just just plugging on down like this. And then this is a pod of dolphins going after fish. You can see here's the tail of a dolphin. Up here, there's the tail of a dolphin. There's one. There's a little guy right there. Remember, this is low light camera, passively looking down. All of this is going on in the water, and you can see that because there are plankton in the water. And next slide, please. And the reason I pitched this is, it doesn't have happen often, but the tanker ships are so big, so large, going across the oceans these days that something like this is almost as big as an aircraft carrier. They have bulbous bows, because that helps the ship go through and the bow wave is dissipated. And these ships don't even know they've run into a whale. Right? They're just so big, it doesn't even create a bump. If a Navy ship ran into a whale, you'd feel it. But again, my idea was I pitched this to a Marine group and said, listen, UAVs are commonplace now. Put a low light camera off the shelf, costs a couple $100, and fly the UAV at night in front of your ship. And, everything's got to work, right? The whale might just have gone to a feeding dive and you fly the UAV over, but it's going to be down feeding 6 to 8 minutes. And depending on geometry and all that, the idea was, when the conditions are right, very relatively cheaply, you could image the whales in front of your ship and change course to avoid the whales or the pod of whales. So that's the latest application, and nobody's given me a call to pursue it, so that's too bad. Next slide, please. But that's why I did it. Okay. This photo collage is my career. Upper left, this is an amphibious ship for Marines and Marine equipment. And the button. Too many moving parts. Okay, so when I was between my freshman and sophomore year, I spent 2 months in the Pacific, 1972 to 73. We actually went off to Vietnam and we were still fighting there, and picked up some Australian and US SEALs. So that was kind of neat as a midshipman. The middle upper is between my junior and senior year. You're supposed to figure out what you want to do in the Navy or Marine Corps. And I wanted to be a submariner. That still hadn't changed. So I spent 2 months on what's called an attack submarine, which was kind of
Little nub runs off.
the nub rolled off.
Might be in the bottom.
That's okay. Yeah, sure. So that's as a midshipman. You've already heard the story of wanting to be a nuclear submariner. That didn't work out. So the Claude B. Ricketts is a great destroyer, guided missile destroyer, has more weapons on that platform than any other ship at that time. So that was as a lieutenant. And I mentioned that a lieutenant commander, as oceanographers, you spend 2 years on an aircraft carrier. Oceanographers do primarily 3 things in the Navy. They're meteorologists. So it's kind of neat being on an aircraft carrier because Mother Nature moves, and so does the airport. They're oceanographers, has nothing to do with dolphins, except in rare cases like my thesis. It's all about acoustics, where the sound goes in the ocean, to find submarines and to help submarines hide. And that was my specialty. And then, so after my aircraft carrier tour, I knew something about anti-submarine warfare from my thesis and other tours. And so I was an oceanographer for a 3-star Admiral staff in Norfolk. And while I was there, I spent 3 months on this submarine at the bottom. We have 2 types of submarines in the Navy. Attack submarines that go out and want to sink things. And SSBNs, strategic something ballistic submarines.
They should know.
They should know, SSBNs. And they go out and they hide for 3 months at a time. They're given a chunk of water. If this space in this auditorium is assigned to that submarine, nobody knows where it is by design. Only the submarine knows if it's here or there, has to stay in this chunk of water, but nobody knows where it is, and by design. So, really boring, really boring. It goes to a certain depth, it goes to a certain slow speed, and that's it. It's in constant contact back in the U.S. at a command center or whatever, because there's a radio that is goes through a satellite, but it's all passive. Nobody's talking on it or whatever. And then because of my thesis work and some follow-on tours, I flew as a mission specialist with 6 helicopter squadrons, flying at night, trying to verify my thesis work years ago. So if you have questions about Navy, ships, submarines, and aircraft, I can talk to them with some knowledge. My youngest son followed my footsteps, graduated of the Naval Academy in 2013, and he flew F-18s, F-16s, had 2 carrier tours, deployments, and how many of you all seen Top Gun 2, the sequel? He's in that movie because they came and filmed Tom Cruise and all that on the aircraft carrier that he was on at that time. So that's pretty cool. Next slide. Okay. So enough of ships. I think this timeline applies to all services. Now maybe it's 20 years old, but it's still about the same timeline. I share it with you because you can come into the service for 3 to 4 years and it's not your cup of tea. You go out and you use the GI Bill to get your advanced education and go do what you want to do. You've earned it. You're using the government's money to get advanced education because you serve in whatever service you choose. But the general timeline is you come in as far as an ensign. Let's start with 100 people. You get commissioned, you're an ensign. You're an ensign for 2 years. If you don't get a DUI, if you don't really screw up, 95% of your year group is going to make it to Lieutenant JG. Right? So you now have 95. 95 people get promoted at the 2nd year point. You work hard. You don't have to be exceptional. You're just still in with the company. For 2 years, 90% of your 95 people at your year group are going to get promoted to lieutenant. I sure wish this would work. So we're right here. So in 5 years, actually 4 years, you get promoted to lieutenant, and 80% of your 86 people that are still with you, that's called your year group, is who you're going to compete with to get promoted. 80% of that 90 will make it. You become a lieutenant for 5 years. So now you have, so now you are here at a lieutenant. You've got 9 years in, and you come up for promotion to lieutenant commander. 75% of this group, 80% of this group is going to make lieutenant commander. You're a lieutenant commander for 5 years. So now you're approaching 14, 15 years. You're getting away from all the fun jobs because you're getting into management, right? Oops, sorry, excuse me. 5 years, 75% of this group is going to make it to commander. So you started with 100, and in 15 years, 51 of that 100 are going to make it, become a commander. Here's it, 51 out of 100 is just above average, right? Just barely. That's why I say be above average. In my opinion, if you make it to commander after 19 to 20 years, that is a successful career, right? Hopefully you had fun, you made a difference, but that, you're approaching 20 years, and in a lot of jobs, 20 years is a successful career. You want to stick around? At 20 years, 50% of this group is going to make it to captain. That's evidence here on the other part of the stage. So I consider making commander a success. You make captain, you're way above average, and you've truly had a successful career. And then if you're lucky, I mean, there are no words. Out of 100, really less than one make admiral. And the takeaway here is, if you go into the Navy or any other service to become an admiral or a general, I mean, that's your motivation. The odds are against you. So don't go in for whatever reason you want, but I'm just trying to manage expectations here. And so at 25 years, you go in zone with your year group. In my year group, there were 16 captains and me, and I was lucky enough to make it. So that's it. That just gives you a time frame. Next slide, please. So here, this slide, I just want to, the message here is you don't have to be you don't have to be the pilot on the pointy end of the spear, landing and taking off from an aircraft carrier. If you're a Type A and you identify with Iceman in Top Gun, that's your group, and they're pretty high intensity. But only 50% of the Navy are what I call warfighters, right? They're the pointy end of the spear. Doesn't mean that the support group's not on the aircraft carrier or on the ships or whatever. You're just not dropping bombs and shooting bullets. But you've got this side of the Navy and Marine Corps, and then you got this side. And I went at the 3-year point, I went from driving ships to what we call METOP, which is meteorology and oceanography. The point here is you can have a great career, make a difference, but you don't have to fly the plane or shoot the torpedo or whatever. So that's the message there. Next slide, please. And this is my second to last slide. So in summary, with all the 6 pictures of ships and the like and all the other jobs I had, this is when people ask me for a resume, I like giving them this. It doesn't talk about jobs, it talks about experiences. So, then on all 5 oceans, the term shellback, blue nose, and red nose refers to when you're at sea and you cross the equator. The Navy has a ceremony and you're a shellback. If nobody's done that here, you guys are all polywogs. And it's a big deal in the Navy, by the way. You get a card, you get a certificate, and the shellbacks pick on the polywogs until they go through the ceremony. Blue nose refers to you go across the Arctic Circle at sea, get your nose painted blue, but you get a certificate. And a red nose is you cross the Antarctic Circle at sea. So this was a bucket list of mine and was able to get it. I've spent at least one night on every continent, including Antarctica. So when I joined the Navy in the 70s, the recruiting phrase was, join the Navy, see the world. And I'm telling you, the recruiter or whatever fulfilled this promise. I've been in a research submarine down to the one ocean, a little over 1,700 feet. That's not very deep. The average depth of the world's ocean is 2 miles. But submarines very rarely go deeper than 1,000 feet. So I beat my father-in-law. That's why I wanted to do it. He was a submariner. And I find, remind him all the time, I've been deeper than he. I flew inside a Category 4 hurricane with no hurricane hunters. It's a P-3. It's an anti-submarine warfare plane that's been reinforced for the winds. And we penetrated the eye 13 times, and that was neat. That was pretty cool. And then I was stationed in Mississippi when Hurricane Katrina came ashore. My wife, the son that went in the Navy, and I walked out into the eye as the hurricane passed over us. And that was great. The next bullet really is the most important message. Your peer group, the people you work with, for in the services, all the services, but I can only speak to the Navy, are great Americans. You know, you're always going to have your 2%. The 2% of any group are going to, you know, they don't want to be there. They're going to break the rules. They don't care. And as a leader, your challenge is don't spend 80% of your time on your 2%. Deal with them and spend your time on the 80% that just want to do a good job, get promoted, and make a difference. And I only had to fire 2 chiefs out of 28 that I worked with. I only had to fire 2 officers that ended up worked for me, one of which was a classmate fellow oceanographer. So you have to make the tough decisions when you need to. But in the meteorology and oceanography community, really smart. Lots of women, and I'm talking 70s and 80s. That's okay. I told her you could go to sleep if I turned off the lights. Okay, so great people. In my case, I ended up with 6 degrees. That's a little overkill, but I used my GI Bill after I got out of the Navy to go back and get a business degree, 2 business degrees. And then the last one is, I married that lady I got introduced to in high school. Thought I was going to be a submariner. Nope, didn't work. She moved 18 times as a child with her dad as a submariner. She's moved 16 times with me. So when we want to think about where we want to live next, it's like, where do you want to go? And really, the bottom bullet is absolutely true, no matter what you do in life. From both perspectives, right? Who you marry is really the most important decision you'll ever make. And the goal is to choose well, not often. Nope, excellent. And I think that's it. So a little Navy, a few sea stories. Do you have any questions?